we go. Okay, so we're just going to quickly review Parak Aleph of Tanya. We asked a bunch of questions and we introduced the concept of an animal soul and a godly soul. Chapter 2, we spoke that the godly soul is an actual piece of God. Chapter 3, we spoke about the 10 powers, 3 intellectual powers and 7 emotional powers. Chapter 4, we spoke about the 3 garments of expression. Chapter 5, we spoke about the food of the neshama, which is Torah. And so we spent how many chapters on the godly soul? 2, 3, 4, 5, 4 chapters talking about the godly soul. Now the animal soul, we talk about it in just 1 chapter. What took us 4 chapters for the godly soul, we're going to only use in 1 chapter for the animal soul. And the reason is because everything that Hashem created is zeh u'mazeh bara lakim. Everything has to be on an equal balance. So what we're basically going to say is that everything that the godly soul has, the animal soul has too. The animal soul also has 10 powers. The animal soul also has 3 modes of expression. So because we already know everything that the godly soul has, it's going to take a lot shorter to tell you what the animal soul has. And then chapter 7 and 8 is speaking about how the klipa and the unholiness and the opposite of kedusha, not just how it is within me, but how it is within the world. So you have 3 chapters where we're speaking about the opposite of holiness, but chapter 6 is specifically speaking about the animal soul. Its powers, where it comes from, what animates it. That's where chapter 6 is basically focused on. So the reason why it's so important is because if you have an enemy, you have to know as much as you can about the enemy in order to fight it. So very interesting. Okay, so we know that it has 10 powers and it has 3 intellectual powers and 7 emotional powers. And we know that from the godly soul, the intellectual powers give birth to the emotional powers. It's like a parent-child relationship, right? The parents give birth to children. So the same thing is, our thoughts give birth to our emotions. That's the regular way that it's supposed to be. However, very interesting, when you speak about the animal soul, it mentions it the other way around. First, it mentions the 7 emotions, and then it mentions the 3 intellectual powers. Because with the animal soul, it's the other way around. The children are telling the parents what to do. That's how it works with the animal soul.
Why is the children why are you bringing in children with animals?
Okay, so the relationship between our intellect and our emotions.
Well, that's for us.
For the godly soul. Well, for the godly soul is that what you think about loving Hashem, you think about fearing of Hashem, and then that translates into emotions.
Gives birth.
Yes.
Oh,
She's asking why
It
you
gives
put
birth.
I think I'm putting it together in my head because we were saying
I'm
the
not saying
bullshit
it does
is
animals,
the
we're saying
children, the
the-
offspring,
yes.
so okay.
Using it as
Yeah.
a form of
I just
comparison.
I wasn't saying.
Okay, Essie, I'm going to give this to you to figure this out. Okay, thank you.
What's going on?
You
Oh,
can
you
just
want to
make
be
it bigger.
larger? Okay.
If possible. Okay. So.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
No, not yet. I'll do it soon. Where's it going? View. Okay, you want to be gallery. Here you go. Is this good
Thank
enough?
you so much. Perfect. Awesome.
You want to be larger?
That's perfect. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. It's the Zoom stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So when it comes to the animal soul, what happens is first you desire something. You desire, a piece of jewelry. You really, really want something very, very badly. So first you want it, and then you tell your intellect, okay, give me an idea how I could get it, and how I could get it and not feel guilty about it. So first you have the emotion, what you want, and then you ask your Sichos, your intellect to help you out. That's how it works with the animal soul. The opposite of the godly soul. Now, what fuels it? How does the animal soul get its energy? The godly soul, we said it's godliness. It's like a ray coming straight from Hashem. It emanates from Hashem. It's not a creation, it's an emanation. It comes from Hashem. The animal soul, it gets its chayis, it gets its energy from something called klipa. Klipa means a shell, a covering. So there's two different types of klipa. There's klipas noiga, a shiny, translucent shell, and then there's gimel klipas atmeis, which are three impure klipas shells, which are much more difficult to penetrate. Think of it; everything has a peel or a shell. Everything. Think of the difference between a grape. Take a grape and hold it up to the light. And you're actually able to see through the thin peel. You're actually able to see the seed, versus a coconut or a walnut, which the covering is so thick, and sometimes the peel is even thicker than the actual fruit inside. If you take a walnut, for example. So what is this? So what's going on here? So the Jewish animal soul gets its nourishment from something called klipas noiga, a shiny shell. It's like the grape. So when you look at it, compare a grape to a Torah scroll. A Torah scroll, no one's going to doubt a Torah scroll is holy, right? Out of 100% of things that's on this earth, 5%, you look at it, you see automatically this is holy. Then there's 90% of stuff that are like a grape. If you take it to the light, if you take it to the Torah's perspective and you look, you're able to see how it could be used for a godly purpose. It's not apparent as clear as a Torah scroll, but if you look at it, you're able to see, oh, the avocado, the crackers, the pizza, whatever it is, you're able to see, oh, I can make a bracha, I can make a blessing on it, and then I could elevate it to holiness. So anything that's in the klipas noiga realm, right? It's kind of natural or pariv. It could be either elevated to holiness. It's up to you what you're going to do with it. You could elevate it to holiness. It has the potential to be elevated to holiness. Or if you choose not to use it properly, it has the opportunity to fall down to the to be in captive by the three impure klipas. Now, the animal souls of non-Jews don't get their energy from the three impure klipas. That's just saying.
What are the three impure?
Okay, so the three impure klipas are things that cannot be elevated to holiness, such as a ham sandwich.
Huh. What else?
Marrying someone who's not Jewish.
What else?
Speaking Lashon Hara.
Really? So
I'm going to explain why.
There's more.
Okay. Anything that is forbidden,
I figured that.
anything that's forbidden, why is it forbidden? Why is a ham sandwich forbidden? Why is it forbidden to marry a non-Jew? Why is it forbidden to speak Lashon Hara? Is it just to make our life more difficult? Is that why we're not allowed to eat non-kosher, to make our life more difficult, so that if we're stuck in the airport for however many hours, we're in Prague or wherever, and there's no kosher food to make life more difficult, that we have to go touring with cans of tuna in our backpack? Is it to make life more difficult? No. The reason why things are not allowed is because as Jews, we don't have the power to elevate it because it's tied down. Have you ever been to a hotel, and I haven't seen this, but this is what Rabbi Shei Stav was saying. Have you ever been to a hotel where the alarm clock is bolted into the wall, so you can't steal it, you can't take it. It's stuck, right? So the same thing, there are things. It's really just 5% of stuff. It's really, when we're talking about things that are tied down. They're tied down. That's what Asur means, tied down. Mutar means untied. So something that's Asur means that it's tied down, and therefore Hashem is telling you, don't bother wasting your time with it, because you're not going to become a better person from it. You're not going to elevate it. You're not going to, nothing good is going to happen from it. If a person marries someone who's not Jewish, then they're basically wasting their time. Yes, the relationship will never be able to blossom properly, because it just doesn't have that potential that a relationship between two Jewish people have. So Hashem is basically doing you a favor. He's telling you it's forbidden, and the way you worship me is by staying away from it. So that's something that's Asur. So the reason why something to speak in Lashon Hara, it's not allowed. It's not allowed because, first of all, you're talking bad about Hashem's children, and second of all, what benefit, what good is going to come out of it? There's nothing potentially good that could come out of this. So therefore, it's not allowed. It's forbidden. It's tied down. Okay.
So interesting how you say tied down, elevated.
So the only way. The only way.
What about talking Lashon Hara on non-Jew? It's also not allowed?
It's a good question. No, but I'm saying, what benefit is there? What benefit is there?
You
So-
won't get anything, just
Right.
air things out.
So if I want to air things out,
Right.
then it's not holy. Okay. Basically, there's two. So one terminology for something that's not holy is klipa, is a peel or a shell. Another term is called sitra achra. It's an Aramaic term, and it means the other side. Anything that's not holy, it's either holy or it's the other side of holiness. It's one or the other. That's it. That's if you have to divide everything in this world, it's in two categories. Is it holy? Or if it's not holy, then it's automatically the other side of holiness. Now, within the other side of holiness is a huge spectrum, right? But if a person gives tzedakah, which is a great mitzvah, right? But they do it not for the right reasons. They're doing it because they want the fame, they want the honor for as soon as there's selfish motive involved, then all of a sudden it goes into the category of klipa, of the other side of holiness. Eventually, it is a mitzvah, and he still did the mitzvah, and eventually, you could have the right intention and you could elevate it. But that's always the question. That's always the question. The question is, okay. Okay. The question always is this, what is holiness, right? What is the definition of holiness? What is the definition of the opposite of holiness? What's the definition of good? What's the definition of evil, bad, right, wrong? So according to Tanya, holiness is not just being nice. Holiness means that you are batal to Hashem. You are Hashem's tool. You submit yourself to Hashem. Hashem is that you're doing Hashem's will. That you're here for Hashem. That's what holiness means. And it's not about you. It's not about me, my identity. I want to ear out. I'm frustrated. There's no me. I'm a vehicle for Hashem. I'm a direct vehicle for Hashem. That's what holiness means. As soon as it's about me and it's my thoughts, my perception, my feelings, how I'm going to express myself, my selfish motives, then automatically it's the opposite. It's the other side of holiness. That's the measuring stick.
But sometimes you don't know. As a person, you have, I taught handicapped kids. Now, sometimes I did it because I was making money. And sometimes I did it because I wanted, I always wanted to help the child. But how do you know the difference between the time you want to make the money and the time you want to have the child.
Sometimes it looks bad as
Making money is not a bad thing.
Exactly,
You're
so,
making money so you can.
but you're
do
still
other
doing,
things.
big success, you're
Yeah,
still doing
exactly.
amazing work. That might be your calling or whatever it is, but
Yeah, but
still.
you know, it's also involved, ego is involved. If I do a good job, I do good about myself. Is that involved?
So first of all, I want to ask you a question. One way of saying is if of course, you know, we're as they said, we're earning money so we could provide for our families. We could have, you know, so that's serving God right there. But sometimes, you know, I was tutoring somebody and I made up a price with her, whatever it was, and I tutored this child for a few months with the intention that I was going to get paid for it. And after a few months, the woman said she was going to pay me, and she said that she paid me, and the money never came through. And I told her I didn't get the money, and that was the end of the relationship. But I don't feel bad because I know that Hashem is in control of my livelihood. Number one, number two, at the end of the day, I still taught this child how to read. You know what I'm saying? So
Yes, absolutely.
so it's not like, you know, of course, I you know, when I did it, I planned that I was gonna, you know, earn money from it. But ultimately, you know, the mitzvah was done. The child learned, so I have that satisfaction, and Hashem will provide in a different way.
You know what, I think
True.
it's once
Maybe
in an
there's-
occasion, if you did this every day for free, and your intention is that you are, like you say, you're getting paid to support your family, you're getting paid, maybe your husband supports your family, and then this is for your extras, whatever it is. You're going out every day and you're doing this, you're not doing this because, yes, being a teacher is a very holy job. It's holier than sitting behind the desk. So you have to just take that also, that's really what it is. But at the end of the day, you're getting paid because you could do a better job.
Yeah, that's
You could do a
absolutely
better
true.
job by getting paid. After that, if someone doesn't pay you, and then, yeah, you think I'm teaching this kid how to read, but if you really want to go every day from 4 to 6 when the kids are coming home from school, and you're giving of yourself and not getting paid, then you could do it once a week. You can't do it every day. People do have a chesed. A lot of 12th graders go volunteer for HAS, people volunteer in camp and they don't get paid. So that's altruistic and they're doing it as a chesed, but you can't do it as a full-time thing that you're just going to do that.
Right, and also when you get paid, then you're motivated to do a better job. You
But
know,
what I heard from you is that, correct me if I'm wrong, you put all the intentions on getting paid more so than helping the child. You were more in the animalistic soul version
Originally.
versus from your voice, as you explained. Am
yeah.
I
So
right or
originally,
wrong?
when the
depends
person
on the person.
reached out to me, yeah, you're right. I was doing
So,
it. I was
understand,
doing
but
it.
I'm just saying,
Yeah, yeah.
So-
But ultimately, I you know, I kind of like switched back, and I was like, you know, Hashem will find another way to provide for me. Hashem knows, you know, what I did, and ultimately, you know, what happened happened.
Right.
And then you get smarter, you know, in the future that, you know, you set things up differently, you get experience.
Right, you do,
Um,
but it's so long on her part not to pay
Okay,
us,
listen,
but stealing.
No, but I'm saying from her part, she said that she
Oh,
sent me the
no.
money. So just because, I don't know.
I think it's a movement. I feel it's energy. Like if can I call you Yenti? Are you not Yenta? No.
I'm sorry.
Liz.
Liz? Okay, so I don't know, you remind me of my friend. She's like you, smart and okay. So Yenta, okay. So Yenti, her name's Yenti. So if I may, I feel that there's movement. If there's movement between the two categories, then it works. Like if that's what I would answer to your question.
It's a very good answer. It's a very good
Settle.
answer. So there's a little bit of this and a little bit of that, you know, because, yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing is
How
black
much
or
is
white.
what is-
Ego,
Right.
you know,
Because
look
we're-
at me, I'm a good teacher, and how much is, look at me, child is benefit.
Because sometimes it's a mixture of both, absolutely.
But that is fair, that child's gonna benefit.
I think we're back to being aspiring millionaires.
Exactly.
Forget about it. You know, you need to also provide the balance. So it's not that you are born. You and that is mindful. From the heart. You do more than
you're thinking.
I think it's a lot about intention.
I agree.
Yeah, it is,
I
absolutely.
agree.
Most things are about motives. What's my motive?
But think
Yeah.
about it, when, although you go and get paid, like I'm a therapist,
That's something to.
so I don't go and volunteer, I get paid for helping kids.
Nothing wrong with
But what I'm saying is, because you have the chesed in your heart, you go beyond your job description.
Ah,
That's the
there you
point.
go. Oh,
So
that's
where
amazing.
you take the extra mile.
That's
And
amazing.
that's what I feel it's the special thing, you know? Yeah.
Very, very well said.
Very well said. Right.
So, life
Yeah.
will do certain things, but at the end of the day, how we do it, the approach of how we do
How
it,
we do it.
and how
we
far
think
you
about
go.
Are we
our
aware?
Intention will really determine ultimately why are we doing it. But I think our ego is there to drive us to do things also.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and your needs, you
And
know?
isn't it
There is a
something
different
about
mindset when
the
you
animal
go
soul
for
being
volunteer to
created?
do something that you like.
Absolutely,
Your
absolutely.
mindset is I need to get paid, so I allow myself to provide for my family, for myself, or whatever, nothing wrong in that. But
It's movement
there
again.
is,
Yeah.
right, exactly.
Totally.
But it's important that if you have that chesed in your heart, I said, you need to take the extra mile because of the care, that it's beyond your job description. It could be that you need to stay longer because you miss your lunch,
Yeah.
you miss this, and you see the patient because you need to make this phone call, that one, to help him out even with more that he cannot do.
How come you and I understand?
Amazing, amazing. But yeah, because we have a godly soul and an animal soul, what's basically happening is that the godly soul,
Dancing. I saw you dancing.
Oh, good, yeah. You're going here?
No.
the godly soul is about do it for an altruistic reason, do it for the mitzvah, even if you don't get paid. And then at the same time, you also have an animal soul that's saying, well, if I'm not getting paid, I'm not doing it. So we have both, because that we have both souls inside of us. It's not that we're one person with two different inclinations, and the little menschie sitting on the right side, little menschie sitting on the left side. But no, it's two full armies, it's two kingdoms inside of me at the same time. And yes, we're Beinanim, and we're struggling. We're struggling our whole life. We're being pulled a little bit to this way, being pulled a little bit to that way. But ultimately, the fact that we have an ego, right? The fact that as Bela said, it drives us to. Otherwise, if we didn't, then just sit back, do mitzvahs a whole, just learn Torah and forget it. Yeah, I don't have. But here, you want to be creative, you want to be unique, you want to succeed, you want to make a mark on this earth, you want to, So where does that come from? It is me, my identity. But again, my animal soul is not evil. My animal soul is not evil. The question is what I'm going to do with it. And there was a chassid who came to his Rebbe, and he said he felt so bad because he had such a great he was teaching Chassidus, but he had such a great ego. So the Rebbe said, it doesn't matter. Let the ego go strong. Just keep teaching Chassidus. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, that's
what it says. Yeah.
Just do what you're doing.
Exactly. So if the ego is what's driving you to teach, to inspire, to do a mitzvah, to give money to tzedakah, just do it. Right. Just do it. And yeah, inside we're struggling, and our intention is sometimes what the same action. In last week's parsha, we had the 12 Nesiim, each brought a gift, right? It was the same exact gift, but the intentions were different. Two people could both donate $100, but the intention is different. The mitzvah was still done by both of them equally. But if you have the proper intention, then it's elevated to a much higher degree. So whether you have the right intention or don't have the right intention, we're human. We struggle. We get pulled this way, get pulled that way. And as long as we know what the goal is give tzedakah and do it for Hashem, not for a selfish reason. Sometimes that always happen, no. But at least we know what the goal is. At least we know what the aim is, what we're trying for. So I think we pretty much.
I have something
Sure.
But we're not trying, meaning am I supposed to give tzedakah? I have no feeling about it. I'm just doing it because Hashem doesn't do it. I don't think we're trying for that. I think it's okay for me to feel good when I give tzedakah because
What's wrong with that?
I'm doing a good thing and I want to
Yeah.
live fulfilling a meaningful life and connecting with Hashem and helping another person. So I don't think the goal, it almost sounds like the goal is to have no feeling about it. Like I'm just doing it because what Hashem said to do and that's it. But that's
You
not.
can feel good about it.
So you could feel good about it and you should feel good about it, but just know that the good feeling that you have is coming from the animal soul. The animal soul also has good stuff about it. The qualities to be humble and to be kind, it comes from the animal soul. The animal soul is not evil. So if you feel good, that's great. It's not, as I said, the other side of holiness is that there's a vast, it's very, very vast. So of course, I'd rather be in a place where I'm feeling good about the good thing that I did than be in a place where I'm feeling bad about something bad that I did, but that is the measuring stick. You want to know if something is holy or the opposite of holiness. So the opposite of holiness, you see, the thing with Lashon Hara, for example, is that you're not trying to be cruel. You're not trying to murder anybody. It was just on the tip of your tongue. It was interesting, whatever it was. You were trying to get out of trouble or whatever it is. So did you really have the intention to go and actually hurt someone and harm somebody? No, you didn't steal from anybody. But what happens is when a person is speaking evil about somebody else, it goes into the category of Asur and opposite of holiness, because I had to get that off my chest, or I had to share that, or whatever it is, and then it's about me. It's about me because this and this happened, and I have to share it because I'm traumatized by this, and therefore I have to share with everybody, and to feel better about the situation, or whatever it is. So that's, it doesn't mean, Lipa doesn't mean evil, horrible, cruel. There is a part of Klipa that it does that, but Klipa for the most part is that grape. You could see how you could use it for something good, but there are some things. So Lashon Hara is actually, in the Gimel Klipa Satmeis, because it can't. There's nothing positive in it. Oh, so this is what I wanted to say. The only thing that you could do once a person, after the fact, after the Lashon Hara was spoken, after the ham sandwich was eaten, after the Avera was done, there's only one thing that could untie it and bring it back up. And that is if you do Teshuvah. And it has to be such a good Teshuvah that it actually transforms the bad thing into something good. Because sometimes when a person is so far away and they feel so bad, then the Avera itself is what propels them to return to God, and therefore it could be elevated. For example, if a person is in a desert for 3 days with no water, they appreciate the water so much more. So a person is so far away, and then being so far away is what compels them to return. Then ultimately, when they return, all the stuff that was tied down into 3 impure klipos could be elevated. But that's a very, very high level of Teshuvah. It's not just, oh, I feel bad, I won't do it again, but it's rather that for the rest of your life, you're closer to Hashem. For example, if a person's in a subway station and there's like yellow lines, like where you shouldn't really cross. But if you come past the yellow lines, and not necessarily anything bad happened to you, but if you cross the yellow line and a train goes flying by and your hat or something, your briefcase or something goes flying into the tracks, whatever it is, next time you're not going to take the chance. You'll stand further back. And you'll probably stand further back for the rest of your life because you experienced what it's like to be closer to the train and you got scared. So now you're gonna stay back. So the person that experienced being far separated and far away from Hashem, for the rest of his life, he's gonna be more careful. So because this, yes, it was a negative thing that happened, but ultimately it brought him closer. So ultimately, everything, the stuff that he did can be elevated. So that's basically, in a nutshell, the Tanya, these 3 chapters of Tanya. So now yeah. Okay, so now interestingly enough, it's just incredible how the Tanya is going to connect to the Parsha. But first I'm going to talk about the Parsha, and then at the end I'm going to tie in the Parsha and the Tanya. Okay, so in this week's Parsha, what happens? Miriam and Aharon. Miriam speaks to Aharon about Moshe. Miriam speaks negatively to Aharon about Moshe Rabbeinu. And what happens is she gets something called tzara'as, which there is no exact proper English translation. The closest you could get is leprosy, a skin disease, and this is her punishment.
But Aaron doesn't get one.
Aaron does not get that punishment. No, because she was the one who spoke. He listened, but she was the one that got the tzaras. And Moshe davens for her. He says, "Please heal her." And Hashem says that she has to be separated. She has to go out of all 3 of the encampments and be separated for 7 days, and then she could return, she could be gathered back into the Jewish people. And this was actually the punishment for anyone who spoke Lashon Hara at that time. So you think it's such a terrible thing, but the Jews were on such a holy level at that time that if someone spoke ill about somebody else, it couldn't be tolerated. It couldn't be tolerated. So today we could do the same thing and nothing will happen to us because we're on such a much lower level. But because they were on such a great level, if they would speak negatively, if they would speak bad about someone, this was what would happen. They would have to go out of all 3 camps for 7 days.
It's the same last week with the Psycho who got punished. Today, it wouldn't have that effect if we're not so pure.
Right. So it shows in a state of
Right.
an elevation, a greatness that if a person does something, then boom, automatically they get struck. Then it shows that they just couldn't contain the evil because they were so great. Okay, so it says that she went out of all 3 camps for 7 days, and then it says V'ha'am loy nasa ad he'asef Miriam. The nation did not travel until Miriam was gathered back in. And then immediately the following words in the next verse is V'achar nasu ha'am. And after, meaning after she joined back the nation, then the nation traveled. So what's the problem? What's the question that we have?
Why they waited for him.
Okay, so why they waited for that? Okay, so the question is, why the repetition? Why say it 2 times? I could have just said, Miriam was secluded outside all 3 camps for 7 days. And then after that, they traveled. Why? It's saying it 2 times. The nation did not travel. And then it says, and after they traveled. The Torah doesn't repeat anything. So if it's repeated twice, it's highlighting something. So, yeah,
It's
so.
funny, you know, that Lashon Hara is something so strong that, think about it, one person, and they waited, and they didn't go, so he was stuck with something.
So this is a huge question. A huge question. The question is not just about Miriam. The question is about any Jew. What is the law? What is the law? If any Jew speaks Lashon Hara and has to go out of all 3 camps for 7 days, what happens? If the Jews all of a sudden, the cloud of glory picks itself up, then everyone has to start traveling. So what happens to that Jew that's outside of all 3 camps? Do they get left behind? What happens to them? If they get left behind, their life is in danger, in a desert by themselves. There's no water, there's no snakes. There is snakes, scorpions, heat. And when they're traveling with the Jews, then they have water from the well of Miriam, and they have the cloud of protection that killed all the snakes and scorpions and protect them from the heat, and they have the food and everything. So what happened to anyone? What was the law? it even goes further. Once the Jews came to Israel and there was a temple standing, if a person had saras and they had to go, they couldn't be in the place of where the Beis Hamikdash was, right? They had to go out for their cleansing, for their 7 days of cleansing. What if in the middle of the cleansing, the temple was destroyed? So did they get cleansed or did they not get cleansed? Because the law is that the 7 days that you need in order to purify yourself only counts if it's outside of all 3 camps. So if there is no camp or if there is no temple, you cannot become pure. That's why today we don't have tsaras, but the law is that if a person was trying to purify themselves from tsaras and in the middle of those 7 days the temple was destroyed, they were not pure. They were not pure. And the same thing is if the Jewish people start traveling and the person who spoke tsaras is outside of all 3 camps, now there are no camps because everyone's traveling. There is no Kohanim, Leviim, Yisraelim set up camps. What happens? The Jew is not left behind. The Jew just follows. He just follows the Jews. But those days of travel are not counted as part of his 7. So only after the Jews resettle and camp again, then he could resume his 7 days.
But here it ended up that they waited for her.
Here they waited for her, which this was the great honor. We're going to see why. What's your question?
What does that have to do with traveling? Why does those days that he's walking?
Because the Torah says it's not just about being secluded from everybody else. There's 2 parts. One is being secluded, and one is that it specifically has to be outside of the machana. You have to specifically be outside of the encampment. If there's no encampment, it's not included. That's just part of the law. That's just how the law is. And it's a good question. Why is it that way?
So even now, we're all in, I don't want to go there, but when we had the carbon, so then now what?
None of us are in a state of purity right now.
Right, so that's what I was.
Okay, so we're not, yeah.
To.
But it's a very interesting thing. In Torah, everything is like really, really down to earth. Saying it'll take a little of an esrog, each thing represents another type of Jew or different part of the body. Everything is like lesson after lesson after lesson. This I'm just, I'm saying this based on the end of the Sicha, but this concept of there's Kohanim, there's Leviim, there's Yisraelim, and you have to go out of all 3. It shows the person. It's very, very evident that you're on that you crossed the line and you're on the other side of holiness. The encampment of the Jewish people represent holiness. And having to go out of the encampment of the Jewish people shows that you're on the other side of holiness. And a Mitzayra, someone who speaks Lashon Hara, he represents. Here, it actually says it it actually says it in here, which is when I read this that I was like, oh my goodness, this connects so much with the Tanya. But the words over here is the general idea of a Mitzorah being sent out of the 3 camps is because a Mitzorah personifies the converse of holiness. A Mitzorah represents the opposite of holiness, and therefore, if I'm just traveling at the end of the line, well, Shevet Dan also traveled at the end of the line. It's not so obvious. Not so obvious that there's 3 camps, one holier than the next. The Kohanim is the holiest, the Leviim is second, Yisraelim is the ordinary Jews. You're still, the person is fell to such a low situation. Not only do you have to see, for some things, you just have to go out of one of the camps or 2 of the camps. But here's a situation where you have to go out of 1, out of 2, out of 3, and you're able to. It's very, very clear to you. Very, very clear to you that you're out, that you're on the other side, that you crossed the line, that you're on the other side of holiness. The imagery of it. Yeah.
If I had to.
And
leave
what
my
about
house-
that?
Oh, I would never sleep with.
What about המלבין פניך ברכה ורבים?
I
Because it's a
know.
shame not just to
If I
yourself.
lived in those times, I'm
Everybody
thinking,
sees it.
I don't wanna say.
It's
it.
like embarrassing, you know? The Kohanim, the
I think
Rabim,
so,
the
yeah.
Israel,
Big
people
house.
think that they need to hide it or,
It's like all of that.
but I guess they want to teach a lesson, you know?
So
because
I'm saying, I
it's
don't see, yeah.
It's such a protestia that everybody needs to see that this person is did Lashon Hara and he's going to be punished. It's so
Okay, so there's different
embarrassing.
things. You see, a person could be embarrassed. A person could be embarrassed for something that they did
Right.
that wasn't right. But Lashon Hara, okay, whatever. Look, I'm not here to to judge between what's worse, what's better, whatever. But Lashon Hara is this is we're just gonna talk about Lashon Hara today because I don't know the other the other things.
Yeah, you're right. Person will listen. Right. No, I'm saying המלבין פניך ברבים. It's not just you get the punished, but everybody, Kohanim, Israel, I mean, everybody needs to see that this person did something bad. Right.
It's your shame.
It's your shame. Yeah, and I think it's I know it's
I don't know.
If you embarrass,
Maybe valid. I don't know.
no, they say if you embarrass someone else in public, right, and their face becomes white,
right.
it's like you killed them.
You killed them.
It's even I don't know what's worse. Whatever. I'm not
Right.
going there.
No, you're right.
But here we're just gonna focus on Lashon Hara today because that's all I prepared. Okay. So okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming. So there's
All the people that did bad things we heard about, they got burned in the fire.
it was
Yeah, whoever did bad
it was
things-
different times. It was different times then, and there were all kinds of things that went on. Okay, so we're just going to try to focus on this for today. Okay, so what happened? So it repeats twice that the nation did not travel until Miriam returned to the camp, and because it repeats it twice, Rashi comes and Rashi says on the words "then the nation did not travel." The omnipresent accorded her this honor because of 1 hour that she lingered for Moses when he was cast into the river, as it says, and his sister stationed herself at a distance. And the Rebbe asked a few questions. Why does Rashi have to say when he was cast into the river? And why does he have to say that she stationed herself at a distance? And why does Rashi have to say etc.?
Showing all the good things that she did as opposed
Yes,
to just that one thing
exactly.
that was bad.
Okay.
Okay,
לזכותה.
so
Again,
לזכותה ייאמר.
here, she speaks about him. She did it also out of goodness. She was worried
Correct.
about him.
She's worried about it.
So let's see what happened. What was the story with Miriam? Miriam is getting rewarded measure for measure for what she did for Moshe. You might think because it says that she waited for him when he was cast into the river, that Moshe's life was in danger, and she saved Moshe's life from danger, and therefore her life was saved from danger. But that's not the case. Her life wasn't in danger. She could have followed the Jewish people on the outskirts of, be the last one, just following them. Miriam's life was not in danger. And Miriam did not have the power to save Moshe because it says that she was at a distance. She couldn't save his life. She didn't have that power to save his life. But what did she yes do? What was the story with Miriam? What did she yes do?
Watched over him to wait to see if someone was gonna.
And what was the result of her standing there and waiting?
Someone came and saved him.
Oh, the kosher, yeah.
She saw what happened and told her mother.
What happened was Batya comes, finds the baby is screaming. So Batya says, listen, the baby's hungry. She gets a nursemaid, an Egyptian nursemaid to nurse the baby. Moshe refuses to nurse. They try one person, second person, Moshe refuses to nurse. Miriam, she's young, but she's quick and she's sharp. And she runs to Batya and she says, should I call for you a Jewish nursemaid? And Batya says yes, and she goes and calls her mother. Her mother comes and the baby calms down. Now, if Miriam wasn't there, eventually Batya would get the message, but eventually she would realize that none of these other Egyptian women are working. I better go try to find a Jewish woman because this is obviously a Jewish baby. But because of Miriam, her brother cried for less time. She minimized his pain. Eventually, they would have found someone. But because of her, because she minimized her brother's pain, she got him to stop crying sooner. And therefore, all the Jewish people waited for her to minimize her pain. Because she could, for a person to be out of their house, okay, for 7 days is bad enough. If they have to be out of their house for 10 days, because 3 of the days there's travel time, right? Then that just made the time that you're away from your house longer, right? So she minimized Moshe's pain, and therefore all the Jewish people, as an appreciation, gratitude for her minimizing Moshe's pain, therefore they all waited for her that it should only be 7 days and not 1 minute longer. She had a punishment, but not to extend, not to delay her return to the Jewish people. And the lesson for us is that if we have an opportunity to lessen someone's pain, how great is that? This.
Sometimes I see these fundraising campaigns and I think, how much is my little bit going to help? But when you put it this way, that my little bit can minimize them a little bit.
Exactly.
Wow.
So that's
Well,
good.
they have $1 a day.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
And Rabbi Seidler does that.
Yeah, you might not be able to take away the pain completely.
Right.
You might not be able to.
Which is
But
what I want to do so badly, but wow.
Yeah, if you could help someone have shelter for one night, have one meal, they should have one less tear to cry, then you're being Miriam.
I wonder though, the name Miriam is an example. Anybody here, Miriam?
My daughter, my puppy.
I swallow this way. I'm done.
It's my favorite name.
No, but go ahead, Miriam.
It's fine. I can handle it.
So I don't know where it came, but okay. So I guess I'll leave it here. Bela, don't tell me, but I'm dropping it in here. The name Bela, I'm very. Uh-oh, you didn't hear that with me. Oh, no, I'm in trouble here. Okay.
I have to say.
So I have a colleague of mine I'm very close with. She asked her children not to name them Miriam because part of the name Miriam, it's again, guys, the name is bitter. And part of the shorish of the name. So I'm wondering if it's in relation to conjunction. Was there an emotion, that's how my brain is working, of bitterness for Miriam, the fact that she had to stay away in those days?
You mean stay away from her brother?
Yeah.
So I think she was named Miriam, and Miriam does have the word Mar in it because it was a bitter time for the Jewish people. But I know for sure, and I could find sources, how Miriam is a beautiful name that completely changes the whole thing around. Miriam also has the word rum in it, which means to elevation.
So
it's not so simple.
It has yam.
Yeah,
and
there's
water.
other things. Yeah.
Just my brain.
No. But yeah, no, but I'm saying what she accomplished and what she did and how she and you could take again, anything could be turned around the other way around. Imagine if her name is Mar because she transformed bitterness.
Exactly.
She helped people.
Right, so this particular colleague has gone through so many personal you know,
So you're also
little
personal
blurbs.
perspective on it.
Yeah.
Generally, according to the Torah.
You know.
Powerful man,
Yeah. So I'm super happy to hear it. I will actually let her know that there, you know, so.
Does she have
There
a-
is more meaning.
No, just very,
There is more meaning.
Right. So you gave such a beautiful, you made it, you turned this into a diamond for me. Yeah, I knew this as. She actually got me to think that way as well. So now I'm seeing a whole different version. So.
But,
thank
but
you.
there is bitterness in this world. We're in galus. But if you could minimize bitterness, put one
Right.
word before it. You know what I'm saying? If you could change bitterness, then
It sounds like this person has a heart.
but think of it, Miriam, take the mar, take
And
the
the-
bitter and ram,
Right.
elevate the situation,
Miriam.
use it to do good.
In the water.
Good.
There you go.
Miriam.
Meirim,
Meirim.
exactly. There you go. Forget about rum.
Meirim.
Miriam is Meirim.
Miriam.
And there you use all the letters of
All the
Miriam.
letters.
Which
Miriam.
means let's
Which
make
means
it
Meirim means to
elevate.
raise up.
To raise up. In Hebrew.
Wow.
So you have to look at that.
There you go. I'm saying it. I was just focusing on the last two letters, but
Meirim.
Meirim, you pick your choice. What do you want it to be?
Exactly.
I
You
will
can
pass
just
this
look
on.
at the first
Yeah.
letter, look at the whole name.
The whole
is
name, just
really
change the vowels. It's a
Mary,
different thing.
elevate.
There you go. Thank you, Dorit. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. This is all the revealed part of Torah. Now there's a hidden part of Torah, the wine of Torah. And for this, you need to like go one step out of the box, like one step further. Okay. So we know from the revealed part, from the perspective of the revealed part of Torah, we all have free choice, and we need to and we need to cultivate and work on our fear of Hashem, our love of Hashem. This is our avodah. This is our work, right? We need to. If a person spoke lashon hara, they have to do Teshuvah, right? They have to initiate. They have to do Teshuvah. They have to work on themselves, and it's work from it's your work. That's the revealed part of Torah, and we spoke about in Tanya. Remember, Tanya is the foundation, and the Rebbe is going to take us one step further. Tanya says, you fell to Gimel Klippos Atmeis, you fell into 3 impure Klippos. You hit rock bottom. You were in the desert for 3 days. You're thirsty like anything. You yourself have to figure out how to pick yourself up and find water and come closer to Hashem and do Teshuvah, etc. That's what Tanya says, and that's what we said up until this point. Comes the Rebbe and says, I want to tell you something. There's something deeper from the wine of Torah, from the hidden part of Torah. And that is, you should know, after all is said and done, up until now, we know that there's a verse that says, everything is everything, what's the pasuk, except for Yiras Hashem. Second.
Everything is in the hand of Hashem except for you.
Yeah. Right, everything is in the hands of Hashem except for fear of heaven. Okay. So the Rebbe says, from a higher perspective, everything is relative. If you go to even a higher place, it actually uses the word in the word that it actually uses to represent Hashem in this Rashi is Zeh HaKaved Chalak Laha Makayim. Makayim means place, because this whole thing is about place, about going outside of the 3 camps to a different place. Everything's about place over here. Now, if you want to go to a higher place, a higher realm, you should know that there's a higher place, and from that higher place, even fear of heaven comes from above. Because the situation can be that a person is in such a low state They're at the opposite of holiness, and the other Mutar represents the other side of holiness. They're outside of the Canaan camp, outside of the Levium camp, outside of the ordinary Jewish camp. They're so far removed from regular ordinary Jews. They're so far gone. They're in the desert. And you know what? When a person is that far away, not always will they have the motivation to return. Sometimes they've given up. So comes the Rebbe and says, that Mitzaira, that person that's outside of all three camps, that's so far gone, that might not have the motivation to return unto Teshuvah, from a higher place, you should know that what happens to this Jew, you bring him to the Kayin. You pick him up and you bring him to the Kayin against his will. You're not asking him any questions. You pick him up and you bring him to the Kayin, and that's how he gets his purification. Hashem himself, from above, from a higher place, not from the regular, natural way that things are supposed to go, but from above, Hashem will give him the motivation and the power and the inspiration from above that he should return. That even if you feel that on your own, you don't have the power, you can't get out, you're stuck in the dungeon, you're so depressed, you're so deep in the mud that there's no way you can get out and you have no motivation to get out. There's still hope. There's still hope because there's a higher place. There's a higher place that's above free choice. There's a higher place where Hashem does give us the power to fear him, to love him, to want to return to him. And that's the higher level that the Rebbe gives us.
That higher level?
How do we get to the higher level? Because, okay, I'll review it from here. Okay, the general idea of a Mutar being sent out of three camps is because the Mutar personifies the converse of holiness. Therefore, the Mutar must dwell outside the camp, even outside the camp of ordinary Jews. This shows that he is far from even the lowest level of the camp of ordinary Jews. Okay. Okay, therefore, this idea too, that even the fear of heaven descends. Okay. I missed the part. And now I'm going to explain it. Thank you. Okay, so we said that the Jews waited for Miriam. They wanted to wait. Oh, the Jews waited for Miriam. Okay, or they wanted to wait for Miriam. Now, guess what? Was it up to the Jews to decide when they're going to travel? No. What does it mean the Jews waited for Miriam? It wasn't up to them. When Hashem, there wasn't like a meeting, a board meeting when we're going to, keep moving. No. When the cloud ascended, which is only up to Hashem, which comes from above, that's when the Jews left. So Hashem is the one that's deciding when they're going to travel. So what does it mean if the Jews waited or the Jews wanted to wait for Miriam? So this is what it says. So this is the explanation. The explanation is that Hashem, yes, Hashem from above, from the higher level, Hashem gave them the desire to wait for Miriam. And from here we learn that even a Jew who's a Mitzaira, who's far outside of all three camps, that there is a place above that they could get the inspiration to return, even if it wasn't naturally so. So I'm saying that it says the entire nation all desired to wait for her. So, people could be impatient and whatever it is, but they all desired to wait from her. And that was something that Hashem, that Hashem gave them that inspiration.
Can I tell them a story?
Absolutely.
My mother had, she was diagnosed with a brain tumor. Baruch Hashem, it was benign. But my brother said, there's something you could do. We heard you can open the Igris. And so we opened the Igris. We had never heard of it before.
You just say Igris is the letters that the Rebbe wrote.
It's amazing. She lived right in the middle of Crown Heights, and she never heard of it.
Well, the Igris
Never
was
went for
only one.
doctors.
Yeah,
know, when
right,
$100, I think, like,
exactly.
right there, it's so.
Yeah, but the Igros, that was, I just want to tell you,
Later on.
yeah, I just want to tell you the origin of that. Okay, basically, when the previous Rebbe lived in Russia, right? And when he came to America, there were tons and tons of his Hasidim that were left in Russia. And there's a story of Reb Mendel Futterfass. He was in Siberia for 20 years, and it was his birthday. He didn't even have pen and paper. And in his mind, he wrote a letter to the Rebbe in his mind, and the Rebbe actually sent a letter to his family who had left Russia and were living in England at the time. And only 20 years after he came, he was released from jail and he came back to his family in England. He saw this letter and it was dated the same date that he had written the letter to the Rebbe in his mind.
Wow.
And the Rebbe had answered him.
Wow.
But besides for that, when the Hasidim were stuck in Russia, right? They wanted to communicate with the Rebbe, but they couldn't. They would write a letter and they would stick it into a holy book. Not because they wanted to open it up and read an answer, because they would stick it into a holy book because that's all they could do. They couldn't send it to the Rebbe. But the Rebbe is above, above the post office, and the Rebbe could receive a letter even if it wasn't mailed to him. There's a story that a person wrote a whole letter to the Rebbe, and he had it in his pocket, and he comes to the Rebbe to a private audience, and the custom was you wrote a letter with everything that you wanted to say, you gave it to the Rebbe would read it, and then the Rebbe would respond. So the guy, he gives the Rebbe the letter, the Rebbe responds to him, he walks out, and all of a sudden, he comes out and he realizes that he gave the Rebbe his shopping list, his grocery list, instead of the letter that he had written to give to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe responded to his letter, not to the grocery list, because the Rebbe is above that. But it was a concept of writing a letter to the Rebbe. They couldn't actually give it to the letter to the Rebbe, so they put it in a holy book. So after the Rebbe passed away, so I don't know how it came about, but people did this to stick a letter in a holy book. But this concept of opening it up and trying to find an answer, I don't know that there's a basis to it, but if people find hope and whatever, then gesund hate. Everyone has their way of connecting.
So are those are compiled letters that you open
Yeah.
up?
No. These are letters that the Rebbe wrote to people.
Oh, I see.
Responded to their
Oh,
story.
that's
Yeah.
I'll tell you
Yeah.
all. It's what I had, but this is more of a serious experience.
Okay, so somebody opened the Igros for us and told us what the Rebbe said. He said, "Tracht gut, that's sein good, think good, and it will be good." And we really worked on that. And Baruch Hashem, my mother, it's
Still here.
it's 25 years later.
Wow.
And she's doing as
Wow.
well as can be, Baruch Hashem. Now, because of that, we kept opening the Igros. Every time we had a headache, we opened the Igros. I'm not exaggerating. And the Rebbe literally pulled us up by our bootstraps and
Wow.
changed the whole family. Our
Wow.
entire family changed for the better, Baruch Hashem. And I always look at this as a gift. It's not something we earn. This was what you're talking about, a gift from Hashem.
Wow.
Whatever. I moved to Manhattan, and people say, "Do you eat out?" I eat out. I don't eat out. Is the culture? If you make a bracha, like, what do you mean you eat out? I couldn't understand. I'm modern Orthodox. That's what it is. I'm modern Orthodox. I eat out. Then I once said to my friend, "So do you make a bracha on a tray for restaurant, even if you just eat inside?" Honey, stop bothering me. So one day I was at Iowa at a Rabash and Simcha, and there was the book there. So I said, "You know what? I'll just open it." I wasn't thinking about anything. I just opened up the book, and it says, "Modern Orthodoxy. Orthodoxy is not modern. There is nothing modern about Orthodoxy." And it was just a thought. It was just such an amazing thing, because after that, my thing is, exactly, what do you say, modern Orthodox, or whatever you decide, we all do whatever we do. But to label it the way it was,
Yeah.
Is a
it just,
permission.
it just
Right.
gave me such an
Yeah.
interesting, thing about
So
it.
You're saying by the Ohel when you're there and because I'm going tomorrow.
Wow. Oh, yeah, it's in the
So-
oil.
Where do you go?
Open it.
You
and
just
so-
open it?
Yeah, you just open
There.
it. You know where it is? It's
No.
in that little room. As you walk in,
Yeah.
on the right, No, it's not that. No, there is a big room where everybody writes, then there is a little room that people pray and all that, so it's in that of the main area.
Oh.
Of the main area, there is a
Egress,
little
you
room.
said, egress?
It was a Kodesh.
It's
yeah.
funny, since they're talking a whole bunch of that.
There is information. I have the whole set in my house too.
Oh.
Just saying. Every Chabad, every Chabad house has it.
Then you end up reading and there's someone who wrote a letter saying, like I said, this person does said that about the Orthodox.
So my when I asked my father about it like years ago, he said, you have a question about chinuch, you have a question about health, go to the table of the index and see where the Rebbe speaks about health and go to that letter. It's not a game. You know what I'm saying? Some people, they're very elevated. They make a vessel for themselves, and yeah. There's also a story that person, open up once. Oh, I don't see anything. Open up again, that, and I don't see anything. On my third time, I don't see anything. So then the fourth time they open up, the Rebbe says, "I already answered you 3 times." So whatever. You have to. It's not a game. You have to
find an answer or a bracha. At least the bracha I'm getting, because he signs everything. At least I'm getting a bracha,
But you have to prepare yourself and be in that mode and
I think I have to go with you. It sounds like you have things going.
My brother goes to the mikveh before he opens the igris.
Absolutely.
My daughter just doesn't,
I see.
so,
Very special.
yes.
Very nice.
This past Shabbos we had the opportunity. There's a high school in Detroit. There's 65 girls, and they came. So they had an OHEL trip. They left Detroit Thursday night. They left back to Detroit Motzei Shabbos, and they came to spend. They spent Shabbos in a house 1 block away from the OHEL, where they were inspired. And then Motzei Shabbos, they as a school, they went into the OHEL and then they went back home. So my husband was asked if he could come to be the rabbi to inspire them. And I opened my mouth and I said I would also agree to talk. So we were in a different house, that we stayed in a different house with the entire family. And it was a very, very special Shabbos. Right before Shabbos, the whole family, we all went into the oil together. It was already, you see the sun going down. It was an amazing experience. And then on Shabbos, my husband and I, we kept taking turns going to speak to the high school girls. Friday night he went, and Shabbos day we both went to teach. I actually taught project with the Sichos, to teach before davening, and then I went again to speak. And then after I spoke, I was with the girls. We went back to the OHEL. We davened mincha there. We spent some time, and then we went back, and then the boys went, whatever it was. But it was very, very, very special Shabbos. So I prepared what I was going to say, and I spoke to the girls, and everyone was like all ears, and it was amazing, whatever. And then towards the end, someone asked how many children I have, and then someone else asked, how do you deal with so many kids? And
These questions were from the teens?
that's from the teens,
teenagers?
yeah, from the high school kids.
They ask the best question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Chabad, the best of the best. And I wasn't really prepared to answer that question because I had prepared what I wanted to say. You know what I'm saying? I don't even think I ever took the time to think about it. Yeah, that's number one. Yes, absolutely. You have to have a great partner that supports you. Absolutely. But I basically said, the more kids you have, the easier it is because the older ones help the younger ones and whatever. And then I told them a great story, whatever it is. But after learning this teaching, if I had an opportunity, maybe I'll make sure to reach out to the school or to the older girls who arranged the trip. If I had opportunity now to answer that question, I have an answer. I have a different perspective, and I would say, learn from Miriam. Having babies is not always the easiest thing every minute of every day. But if Miriam, if she was able to make a baby stop crying 1 minute sooner, and look what the reward that she got, that Hashem from above, from a higher place, was able to inspire all the Jews to desire to wait for Miriam. okay, then if we have a crying baby and you get up at 2 o'clock in the morning to pick up the baby, it's not a simple thing. And Hashem will reward us and is so grateful because these are his children. So when we have this perspective and we believe and when we believe when we believe in it, when we realize when we realize that raising children is the greatest accomplishment, then having a large family is not a question, you know? So I have to now find a way how to get that message back to them. But yeah. Okay, thank you so much for coming. So we there is a poem on the chat. The advantage of the poem is sometimes like I share and then I forget one detail, but it was in the poem, but I just forgot to share it. That's why the poem is nice because then I make sure that I didn't leave anything out. So should we read it? Yeah. Okay. So I don't have a hard copy myself.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll just read it. That way it will be on the Zoom. I'll read it very quickly and then we'll end because it's so late. Okay. About Moshe, Lashon Hara Miriam did speak. Therefore, she got tsaras and had to leave the camp for a week. And the people did not travel on until Miriam was readmitted. In the following pasuk it says, and afterwards the people departed. Rashi is bothered by the repetition. Therefore, he gives an explanation. Hashem honored Miriam for waiting for an hour to see what would happen to her brother when he was put into the river. Miriam was repaid measure for measure, not because her life was in danger. If the Yidden started traveling and her 7 days weren't yet done, she wouldn't be left alone in the desert because she could still follow everyone. But she could only complete her punishment when the Yidden were in a state of encampment. So her purification would be delayed for every day that the people were traveling on their way. An honor she did earn. The people wanted to wait for her return so that she could get her punishment over with right away and she wouldn't have pain for even an extra day. For Miriam, this was the perfect honor because she was too far away to save her brother from danger. But by staying, she prevented her brother from crying longer when she asked Batya if she could call a Jewish nursemaid who was her mother. Since the baby was Jewish without a doubt, eventually Batya would have figured out that in order to calm the baby, a Jewish nursemaid was necessary. But because of Miriam's quick thinking and love for her brother, she lessened the baby's pain and he stopped crying sooner. We must learn from Miriam too, by doing all we can to lessen the pain of another Jew. The truth is that when to travel on the Yidden, it didn't depend. They traveled when the cloud of glory did ascend. But the fact that to show gratitude to Miriam they did desire came from a place much higher. Okay, it came from Hashem. Okay, I have to make that more clear. Okay, from the revealed part of Torah, fear of heaven comes from a person's Avodah. But from the Torah's inner dimension, from the Torah's inner dimension, from above comes everything, even fear of heaven. The opposite of holiness is represented by the Metzora. Hashem gives him assistance to fear Hashem and to do Teshuvah, because to return on his own, he doesn't have the motivation. He is brought to the Kohen, and from above, he gets inspiration. Okay. Okay, so thank you all so much, and thank you for all your questions and your involvement.
Beautiful.
Hashem.
Right.
Yes.